In Yakima, Washington, a lone camper was sitting by his fire just after midnight when he noticed something moving between the trees. At first, he thought it was a bear. Then it stood up, 8 feet tall, broad shoulders, covered in fur. And it wasn't walking away. It was watching him. He didn't move, didn't reach for a light, because whatever this thing was, it already knew he was there. That's how a lot of these stories begin. Not with screaming, not with chasing, just the realization that something massive is standing in the dark and staring back. Across North America and spanning decades, there have been thousands of reports describing the same kind of creature. Large, upright, covered in hair, moving silently through forests, leaving massive footprints behind. Some people believe it's a supernatural spirit tied to ancient folklore. Others say it's nothing more than a bear standing upright, a misidentified animal, or an elaborate hoax. Bigfoot has become a cultural icon, a mystery that refuses to disappear. But instead of asking whether Bigfoot exists, let's flip the question. If it absolutely does exist, what would it actually be? Because when you look at thousands of sighting reports across different states, different decades, and completely unrelated witnesses, the descriptions are weirdly consistent. Too consistent for pure folklore, too widespread to dismiss entirely as coincidence. So what if the explanation isn't paranormal at all? What if it's just biology? Let's start with the most common version people imagine. For many, Bigfoot is something mysterious and almost supernatural, a relic creature from the ancient world, a forest spirit, maybe even something interdimensional. This idea has been shaped heavily by media. The 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film cemented the image of a tall, fur-covered figure striding through the woods. Since then, documentaries, TV specials, and pop culture have leaned into the mystery angle, sometimes even suggesting government cover-ups or paranormal origins. And to be fair, there's something compelling about that version. It feels larger than life. It keeps the mystery alive. But here's the problem. There's no physical evidence supporting a supernatural explanation. No artifacts, no technology, no consistent pattern that suggests anything beyond a biological organism. Skeptics also point out the obvious flaws. No confirmed bodies, no fossil record in North America, no crystal clear footage. And those are valid criticisms. Still, a lack of proof isn't proof of impossibility. It just means the case remains open. Then there's the more extreme theory. The idea that Bigfoot is something truly out there, an alien hybrid, an interdimensional traveler, or a government experiment, or a surviving archaic human species like a Neanderthal. This theory survives because witnesses often describe something that feels almost human. Intelligent eye contact, strategic movement, the sense of being observed rather than chased. It's a fascinating idea, but it also requires stacking multiple assumptions on top of each other. Hidden civilizations, secret technologies, cross-dimensional travel, without strong evidence for any of them. It's fun, it's intriguing, but it moves further away from the simplest explanation. And when evaluating mysteries, the simplest explanation usually deserves the most attention. So, let's talk about the biological theory. If Bigfoot exists, the most logical explanation is that it's a rare, highly intelligent nocturnal great ape that evolved specifically to avoid humans. That's it. Not magical, not paranormal, just an apex primate that got extremely good at staying hidden. We know large primates existed in Asia. Gigantopithecus was estimated to stand nearly 10 feet tall and lived until around 300,000 years ago. We know animals crossed the Bering Land Bridge between Asia and North America. Humans did, other mammals did. It's not unreasonable to imagine that an ancient branch of large primates could have made that same crossing tens of thousands of years ago and adapted to North America's dense forests. If that happened, natural selection would reward the individuals best at avoiding humans. thicker fur for colder climates, solitary behavior, nocturnal activity, massive territories, silence over confrontation. And think about the environment. Sightings cluster in places like the Pacific Northwest, Appalachia, Northern California, Alaska, and parts of Canada. These regions share dense forest cover, low human population density, water access, and abundant wildlife. Millions of acres of terrain that most people never step foot in. Now add intelligence. If Bigfoot's intelligence level is somewhere around that of chimpanzees or early hominins, that means it can plan routes, recognize threats, remember patterns, and actively avoid danger. A small population with generational learning could easily develop a survival rule. Humans equal risk. Avoid them at all costs. That alone explains why sightings are rare, brief, and almost always accidental. What about behavior? Across thousands of reports, you see consistent patterns: wood knocking, rock throwing, parallel walking through the trees, strong, musky odor, large human-like footprints. These aren't ghost behaviors. They're territorial and cautious animal behaviors. Many primates knock objects to signal presence. Many mammals produce strong musk. And some footprint casts even show what's called mid-tarsal flex, a bending in the middle of the foot that's common in apes but not in modern humans. Now, the biggest skeptic argument: why don't we find bodies? Large mammals decompose shockingly fast in forest ecosystems. Scavengers can strip a carcass within days. Acidic soil accelerates bone breakdown. If the population were small, say only a few thousand individuals spread across an entire continent, deaths would be rare events in vast, remote terrain. We didn't confirm the existence of gorillas until 1847. Giant squid weren't filmed alive in their natural habitat until the 2000s. Snow leopards are still rarely observed despite being known species. And none of those animals are actively trying to avoid us the way a highly intelligent primate might. Does this prove Bigfoot exists? No. But if it does exist, the biological explanation requires the fewest assumptions. It aligns with ecology, with evolution, with consistent behavior reports. It doesn't require supernatural forces or secret dimensions. It just requires a rare, intelligent animal living in an enormous wilderness. So here's my take. The paranormal theory is compelling, but unsupported. The extreme conspiracy theories are imaginative, but fragile. The biological theory doesn't solve every mystery, but it fits the evidence best. If Bigfoot is real, it's likely not hiding because it's magical. It's hiding because it's smart. And sometimes the most unsettling explanation isn't that something is supernatural, it's that it's natural. A large, intelligent predator sharing the forest, choosing not to be seen. Maybe Bigfoot isn't a monster. Maybe it's just an animal that mastered survival. And if that's true, we might not be as alone in those forests as we think. If you want to apply this same logic to another mystery, the Skinwalker episode is next. I'll see you there.